Hi everybody, it's Frank again and my crazy project, which I don't know what I'm doing, called Stories of Our Lives. I'm with someone. This is challenging for me today because I don't know Sally. I'm with Sally Marshall and I don't know Sally at all. She doesn't know me, so we're in kind of slightly uncharted territory because most of the ones I've done so far I've known the person in some way. So this is going to be interesting. Do you know what? This is part of my project to connect people through stories. I really strongly believe, and the older I get, that I strongly believe that we're connected by the fact we're all made of stories, you know, and the stories about us are a little bit true, but they're a bit made up as well. And I really think if we start to understand how we're made of stories, and we maybe take those stories a little bit less seriously sometimes, we'd be maybe less at each other's throats, picking out the differences that we all have and saying, you know what, even though we believe different things, we're still connected by the fact that we tell stories about ourselves. It's a fascinating thing if you really think about it. And that's partly what this project is all about. So that's my little preamble to kind of really, that's like me having a little gin to soothe myself down a little bit. And now I'm going to say hello to Sally, who's probably thinking, oh my God, what have I agreed to do? Hello, Sally.
Hi. This is interesting, really interesting project because I just tell my story and that's what people buy into.
So I'm just going to sit back for a little bit now and just let you get. Now, you know what? There are some places that I kind of want to get to with people, but you know what this project has really made me think about, and this has been developing for about 6 weeks. This is actually kind of 40-year epiphany for me. You know what I mean? It's like been developing. I grew up in a pub. And I was in the bar, secondary smoking from an early age, you know what I mean, and listening to people's stories. And I think I got this kind of, I must have from an early age, apparently there's this story of me going up to my mum who was English and saying, this is a lorry. And I'll go up to my dad at the same time and go up to him and say, this is a truck, because he was American. And apparently, so I got the nuance that there's this grey area where things don't actually mean like a specific thing. And I think growing in the pub, I grew up in a pub, accentuated that as well. And one of the things this project has really made me think about is how, you know, it's made me think about my relationship to the people I'm talking to. And that, you know, as I said before, it stretches from family members to people like yourself, Sally, who I've heard of, but I don't actually know. We've never spent any time together. So this is really fascinating because my mind was whirring this morning in terms of like, what are you going to say to this woman? What are you going to say to this woman? So I just want, can we just touch base on, like, we're connected through Kerry, and that's really interesting. Kerry said to me, we were thinking about, you know, people, we were going through a list of people, and Kerry said, I mean, she literally came out with your name straight away. She was like, Sally Marshall. So can you speak to that? And what do you know, because when she says something like that, I listen because I trust her. Do you know what I mean? So what is that, when I reflect that back to you, can you kind of talk into that at all as a way of introducing yourself, kind of thing?
I first met Kerry when I spoke at the women's room in Whitstable.
Cool.
It's a ladies networking group, and I was asked to speak, but I only knew Dee. I didn't know anybody else in the group.
Right,
and there
right.
were quite a lot of ladies there, and Kerry was one of them. And
Yeah.
I just sat quietly and listened to everybody else say their bit. And Kerry kept saying, what about the lady in the pink dress? What about the lady in the pink dress? Not realising that was the speaker.
Right, I see.
And so they sort of passed me by and then came back to me because I was the last one to speak.
Sure.
And I stood up and basically told my story. And Kerry just sat there nodding at everything I was saying.
Brilliant.
One lady burst into tears.
Wow.
Because she related to my story so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, everybody just sat listening, and I just told my story, really.
You know what? And yeah, sorry, I was just going to say it's fascinating because we're Kerry and I are very similar like that. We're interested in how you just, I suppose, live a fulfilled life and how you do it differently, because you know what I mean. I think we've always been attracted to people that have that kind of dynamic spark. So it's no surprise that she would make that connection with you. You know what I mean, when she hears you speak. What did you do?
So,
Okay.
Yeah, and just had coffee, and basically we're sort of on the same wavelength, and so we sort of helped each other. So coffee meeting was quite entertaining, because I was pushing her to do things and she was pushing me to do things.
Right, right.
And it's the way you move forward, really, isn't it? Learn
Yeah,
from each other and then
absolutely
do it. So yeah, so that was the beginning of my link to Whitstable, really. I realised how many people I know over here from that meeting and one or two other things, and now I've moved to Whitstable. So
oh wow, you're actually here. I did not know that. Okay, so you're here as well. That's hilarious. Okay, so one of the things I know, and that's because you told me just before we started recording, is that you speak. I mean, you do speaking engagements, and you said you did a speaking engagement. Do you mind me saying this, or do you want me not to say?
No, it's probably on LinkedIn as we speak.
It's okay. So you did a speak yesterday at Santander, and it's interesting because you've come on with such energy, and you say about telling like it's one of those things that. I'm contacting a lot of people at the moment and saying, just come on and tell your story, and people are really reticent about doing that. But you're saying, I just go out and share my story. So can you just give us the flavour of what that is? Because I'm fascinated now, because I don't know it.
Okay. So I grew up in Yorkshire, came to London when I was 18, worked in the House of Commons for 25 years.
Wow. In what capacity, Sally?
The last job I had was a business manager, so I did business plans, performance management, that sort of strategy stuff that nobody really wants to look at in their business. They really need to. So about 3 years ago, I decided that I would use that knowledge and experience to work with small businesses, because it's exactly the same, just the numbers are different. So you might be talking in tens of or hundreds for small businesses, whereas I was used to millions. But the business planning and the strategy is all exactly the same. But at that time, I'd had a bit of a crisis and lost my confidence completely. So I could barely stand up and say my name.
Wow.
So I've rebuilt me as well as grown my business. So the two have sort of gone side by side, really. So as I've built my confidence and stood up and did my 60 seconds, which was really hard at the beginning. I used to shake and hold onto the chair. I've slowly built it up, and my business has grown at the same time. So now I've got 2 books on Amazon. One of them is on Audible.
It's brilliant.
I've got a magazine for business owners.
Wow.
I'm just about to put a program online for business owners to do, looking at their strategy. So they do what I do, basically follow my book and do the business plan, get themselves out there and grow their business. That's
brilliant. I mean, and just to say that I will link, to the, when I put this out, we'll link all that to the, when we, so if anybody is interested in checking Sally's stuff out, please do, because it'll be linked to this interview. So, now I'm just going to put, go on, carry on.
The Santander stuff is quite interesting. That I was challenged to up my social media, because I didn't really understand it. I didn't really do it.
Brilliant.
I was given a challenge to do it. So I went on LinkedIn and wrote a blog, basically, about, have you ever wanted to publish a book? And a man from Santander in London messaged me and said, I'm envious of your book. I'd like to chat to you. And you think,
wow.
So I rang him, not knowing who he was. And after a 20-minute, half an hour conversation, I Googled him and realised that he was quite senior in Santander.
No way.
So a personal conversation about him wanting to write a book ended up as an amazing business contact. And Santander has just come and found me since then. So I've got quite a lot of contacts in Santander. I speak at several of their networking events. So last night in Hertfordshire, and I've done that 4 times. They've had 4 meetings and I've spoken 4 times. And as I was saying to you a bit earlier, they just like me telling stories. So the theme was women in business. And I'd been to a funeral this week of a dear friend who was an amazing woman in business. So I told her story, linked it to my book, and got some really good feedback. And the night before, I'd been at Santander in Bromley and done the same thing, and again got some feedback. But yeah, it's just a great thing to do.
It's
people
fantastic.
Just love the story. So
can I ask you, when you wrote your blog, did you write that with any kind of it was literally I mean, this is really interesting. You put something out there, because so many people want to do something, don't they? And they kind of resist it, and they're not sure. I've done this for years. I've wanted to be perfect because judgment and all that kind of stuff, and I've resisted sending. I'm a pretty good writer, but I've resisted sending anything out because I want it to be the best novel ever. I want to be Shakespeare and Hemingway and everybody.
No,
so you just put this blog out.
Perfect. And when I did the first book, I was like that. I was really nervous because it puts you out there, big scale, and you think, is anybody going to like it? Is anybody going to read it? Are they going to challenge me on what I said? So my finger hovered over that button for quite a long time. The same with the blog, the same when I did a newsletter. I closed my eyes and pressed the button the first time I did a newsletter. What did I think was going to happen, really? Nothing people did. Some people opened it, some people deleted it. It doesn't really matter, does it?
That's the thing.
The right people will read it. The right people will find it.
I love that. Sally, can I ask you? I'm going to push a little bit more deeply and just tell me to back off. But and if you don't want to talk about the details, but maybe we could just push a little bit more, a little deeper in, and maybe you could speak generally if you want to. But just that, I'm fascinated what you said about you had something happen in your life, and I'm going to ask some questions about flourishing and thriving later on. But I'm just interested in, you said something like, I lost all my confidence and then you built it back. I rebuilt myself, and that just fascinates me, because I'm so interested in how we flourish and how we be our. I've always written things down like, how do we be our better selves? You know what I mean? Not all the time, because it's probably impossible, but more time than other. And so can you see what I'm saying? Can you speak to that a little bit? That again, if you don't want to go into the details, obviously, I totally get it, but just that process of losing everything, or losing that sense of what you are and everything that made you be able to go into the world, and then having to somehow reconstruct that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it was. I got caught up in a bit of domestic violence stuff, and
wow, God, I'm sorry about that.
I had to get a restraining order and had the police on speed dial for a while.
Wow.
Squad car on my drive every couple of weeks, and
God,
quite terrifying. Somebody threatened you. So I was scared to go out, basically. Didn't really leave my house very much, and kept my phone with me constantly, even in the house, just because he threatened to break into the house.
Oh, that's awful.
And I've never come across anything like that. I've had quite a protected life, I suppose, and never appreciated quite what that feels like, and it's frightening. So I hit rock bottom, lost my confidence to do anything. So to go to a networking meeting, I was really agitated, would watch everybody, watch everything that moved, just in case. I understand now that I allowed that to happen in a way, that I was overthinking it, and in my head, well, what if he turns up, or what if this happens, and what if that happens? Actually, it didn't. The restraining order, and if he'd done anything, I would have just dialed 999. I did it once, and he knows I'd do it again. So it came near, but my head was planning that story. What if that happened? What would I do? So it was really, networking was really quite difficult. And then I met somebody who's a business psychologist, and I signed up to his course, and he just gave me lots of personal development reading to do. And on the down days, the bad days, the teary days, he was there at the end of the phone saying, come on, you can do this, I believe in you. And the bad days got less and less, and the good days got more and more. So it was quite a journey.
Wow.
And I still have days where it's all a bit overwhelming. My business is changing quite fast at the moment, and it's a little bit scary but very exciting. And a little bit overwhelming sometimes. So in Whitstable, I just go for a walk on the beach, and that clears my head, and off I go again.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, you just learn to deal with it really, and yeah, it becomes less of an issue, I guess.
Sure.
Things. So yeah, and then, you know, coffee morning or coffee meetings with Kerry is part of that, because, you know, sometimes if I'm resisting doing something because that's where it's going to take me, but she's the same, so we sort of push each other to do things.
Got it.
And it's like that, you know, you don't do it because you're scared of success in a way.
Right.
Scared of where it might take you, and the book is part of that. You know, it opens you up hugely. Anybody can see that and read that, and it puts you out there in the public domain.
Yeah, you're vulnerable.
Now I love it. Now I've got used to it, and I've got used to the speaking, and I love it, and I get really good feedback, and that drives me to do some more. So
yeah, you know what, Sally, something you said there I spent most of my adult life in literary fiction and books and, you know, whatever. I'm always thinking of lines that come to me, you know, but what you said there was really interesting, because this is the power of stories, isn't it? And I think you actually said it. You know, we tell our story all the time, and we select bits out, don't we? You know, when you meet someone you really like, you select all the good bits out, and there's all the other stuff left out. And, you know, but it happens the other way around, doesn't it, as well? When we get into that kind of fear mindset, we start telling stories that, you know, they leave all the other stuff out, and we start saying, you know, words like, it's never going to happen, it's always going to be like this, or, you know, and you start making that up and living in the future. It's fascinating that you caught that. And it reminds me of that Shakespeare quote from Hamlet, where he says, Hamlet says, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Yes. I've always loved that quote, you know. And I think what's really interesting, what I kind of take from what you said, and it's so powerful that, you know, it's awful that you had to go through that, or not you had to, but you did go through that. But the power of the human spirit to rebuild and say, you know what, recognize that story to be a fiction, because, you know, there's an element that it could happen, but actually I'm living in fear about the story, and I can actually edited the fear out to a certain extent. You can't always do it, and you started to write your own story again, and, you know, that took you down here, and it took you into a completely different space. And I find that so fascinating and inspirational. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why people like to listen to the story, because quite often they can relate to it. And I'm amazed how many people have a similar story. They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But when I start to talk about it, they relate to it, and that's why that lady cried that day. You know, she could relate to something that I'd said, or, you know, they suddenly have a light bulb moment. That's what's holding them back. And when I spoke Bromley the other night, somebody asked what was the biggest challenge in our businesses. There were 3 of us speaking, and my answer was me, because it's my head, and it's the same for most of us. It's stuff in my head that holds me back, thinking I can't do that, or what happens if I do that, or what will somebody think, or, you know, will I be able to cope, or, you know, there's all this stuff, and it holds you back.
Yeah.
Stops you writing that book or doing that thing you want to do. So it's taking control of that, really, telling it to shut up and go away, I suppose, and doing it anyway. You know, feel the fear and do it anyway. And once you get over yourself, it's amazing what starts to happen, and that's what's exciting.
That's really fascinating.
So, you know, how you get over that bit and move on to something else, and and that's, having allowed that to happen now, my business is going crazy. It's really exciting.
Fantastic. I can so see why you and Kerry, you know, are on the same wavelength, because it's really funny. Everything you just said over the last 2 minutes, we literally have just had a conversation about that. Because I'm starting to kind of, you know, get out there a little bit and talk about my passion, but I still am not completely, you know. I've made a lot of breakthroughs. I'm doing these videos now and everything, but I'm still, you know, I'm still slightly hesitant. I still have some hesitations about it, and you know, we were talking about that, you know, what's the nature of those considerations that come in, that self-doubt or those that worry about the judgment. And I got talking about a guy I met a couple of weeks ago, fantastic guy called Rob. Rob, if you're watching this, you're an inspiration, mate. Now he's, you know, he has different beliefs than me, but he's out there. I mean, he is unself-consciously out there, and he's doing good things, you know what I mean? And he's really changed his life. And I'm looking, thinking, you know what? I'm so passionate about connecting people through stories, but also my love of literature and literary fiction, and just, you know, how it's like a container of cultural ideas. And it's almost like we're the curators of those ideas, and we have a kind of, partly we have a duty to carry that on and pass it to the next generation, you know what I mean? And, you know, when I talk about that, I'm so passionate about it, but I have those little sneaky doubts that come in and say, no one's really interested, you know, and it's pushing through that, isn't it?
But yeah, and actually it doesn't really matter if nobody's interested. It's about you, and somebody will be interested, and the right people will hear it.
That's so true. That's so brilliant.
So you should never worry what everybody else, because you never please everybody.
Right.
And the more successful you get, the more green-eyed monsters you get, because they want what you've got, but they don't want to do the work or put themselves out there or do what you've done. But they want, you know, they want popularity or whatever it is, success, what they consider to be success, but they don't want to do what you're doing. So yeah, don't worry about it, just do it.
Just keep doing it. That's the message. That's the message.
Just keep moving it forward, because the more you do it, the more exciting it gets, and the more interesting people you meet. So yeah, at Santander in Bromley on Tuesday, I met the regional manager for Kent, Surrey and Sussex, who loves what I'm doing, and wants to promote it across all the branches. So I think, oh, okay, I can do this.
That's fantastic.
So things start to happen. You start to meet the right people, and it just takes you on to the next step. You don't always realise what's happening, but it's moving you forward. And I think one of the things that I don't do is look back and see how far I've come. Yeah. Other people see it, but I don't appreciate quite what I've done and how much I've done and how far I've come in a relatively short time, really.
Yeah.
But everyone can do it. You just have to want to do it. So,
you know what, amen to that. Listen, everybody that's watching this, if there are any people watching it, I'm sure there will be at some point. I'm very confident that's going to happen. But listen, this is such a cool message, and let's just hone in on that for a second. You know what, you might be there, and you might be, you know, passionate about something, you might be wanting to do something, but you have considerations, you have doubts, those little voices are talking at you, whatever, you know, just, oh, I've got to get this bit right. Just do it. Listen to Sally, just get out there. Sally went rock bottom, and she said it, she went rock bottom. She's in fear of her life. She managed to find, you know, a different story, an inner confidence. You know, I have this belief that actually human beings are so tenaciously creative, and you know, we survive, and I actually think there's a lot of noise nowadays, but we're okay. There's a point in us somewhere where we're all right, and we just have to find that space, quieten the noise down, and just find that space and go and do it. And do you know what? Screw what everybody else says. Just go and do it. As long as you're not hurting anybody, go and speak your truth to anybody, whatever that is. And I mean truth with a tiny little T, not some kind of big, I'm going to make you all believe what I believe. I'm not talking about that. Just whatever speaks to you, you know?
Yeah, you just do your little bit, but for me, it's lots of small steps. So,
love it.
You know, I used to have this thing about I wouldn't go out for a walk on my own, or I wouldn't sit in a cafe on my own, and somebody challenged me to do it and take a photo, and I cried. You know, I walked along the beach and the tears came, but I did it. And once you've done it once, you think, okay, I've done it once, I can do it again. So I do it regularly now. I'm fine now, and I can sit in a cafe on my own now, and you know, have a cup of tea or whatever. It's fine. And that's such a small thing, really. Yeah. To most people, they think, "Oh, how ridiculous is that?" But to me, it was quite a big thing.
Right. Yeah.
So overcoming that, you think, okay, so I can do that. So what else can I do? And just push it a little bit each time.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow. You don't realise how far you've come, but all those little steps, they all add up to quite a big leap, really.
Yeah, I love that.
and it's just pushing it a little bit each time, pushing that boundary in that comfort zone a little bit each time. So just, you know, if you want to get out there but are nervous of it, then just start with blogs or commenting on somebody else's stuff, because it just puts your name out there a little bit.
Yeah.
And people start to look and take notice, and then you can do a bit more.
Yeah.
How the speaking's gone, really. It's built up from getting comfortable doing 60 seconds to 10 minutes to now doing things for Santander and others, and doing videos. Videos was the same. I was terrible at videos. I really couldn't do it. Now I don't even think about it. Just, well, like today, just do it. I just talk. It just comes out. The right thing seems to come out.
It flows.
I don't worry about it anymore. But a year or so ago, I would have been terrified. I wouldn't have done this. It would have been too nerve-wracking. I would have been in a terrible state. But now, you know, step by step, I can do it. It's fine.
Brilliant. Sally, can you just talk a little bit about one of the things that's really interesting on your, you know, this journey that you've been on, which is, you know, just fantastic that you're out there thriving now. But what's really interesting, and you know, this fascinates me, is that, you know, it took you to do it. Obviously, you've got to find your light inside, and whatever metaphor you want to use. But what's interesting is that along the way, and this is something that I think is really easy to miss now, isn't it? Is that along the way you've said, you know, I reached out on that person, and I reached out here, and someone challenged me to, you know what I mean? And it's that kind of almost that invisible community where we do get a leg up from people, and we do take inspiration. And I think it's so important to just, you know, remind ourselves that we're in this community where we're seeing other people do stuff. And I think it kind of leads into what we were just saying a couple of minutes ago. One post can affect somebody else. You sharing your story, your unique story, whatever it is, someone reads that, someone listens to that video, and that could just be the spark that they need. And the more we talk to each other about our experiences, the more that we say, like, I'm having this happen to me and I don't like it. What can we do about this? Or I did this amazing thing. You can do it too. It only takes that one post. You don't have to be, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it is that, you know, because you think you're on your own. You think nobody else experiences these things, but they do.
Right.
Once you start talking about it, you know, other people then come and talk to you and share an experience, and, you know, I guess if they see where I've come from and what I've done, then that inspires them to have a go, you know, even just a small step. And that's what's happened, really. That's what happened in Whitstable. You know, so many people engage with that, you know, 20 minutes, me standing there telling my story. And, you know, I get a bit emotional about it sometimes as well.
Yeah.
And they did too. They really bought into it. And, yeah, Kerry was one of several that came up to me afterwards, and we've connected. And, yeah, and then you get that, you build up that support. And people say, you know, the universe sorts it out, and although you don't really understand what that means, it's true. It's what happens.
I love it.
And when I met that guy, I didn't know where to go and what to do, and he said, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I've said to him several times, you know, I couldn't have done this without you, and he says, no, I'm just here to give you the tools and to support you, but you've done it.
I love that.
And that's quite empowering.
Yeah.
And it's true, when you find the right people, things just start to happen. And, you know, more positive, and surround yourself with positive people as well, because the negative people will pull you down to their level.
I love that. You know what? It's one of the things I've been saying recently, and I've been reminding myself, because I've been in dark places in my life, because I think because of so much expectation of, you know, being a success and all that bullshit that goes with that. But it's just like, I've got to a point, I'm 50 in January, and I for some reason, it's been this like long epiphany. It's kind of like, you know, breakthrough. But it's kind of like, the way I see it now is that you can kind of tell bad stories, and you can tell good stories. And it's like, what do you want to do?
You learn from the bad stories. So, you know, one of my limiting beliefs was that I wasn't capable of doing all this. And that goes back to a teacher telling my parents when I was 17 I wasn't worth investing in. that she told them that I should go to the state college rather than the private college because I wasn't worth it.
Oh my God.
I know. And that's a long time ago. But so for years and years and years, I thought I was only capable of being a secretary. There was nothing else out there for me.
Wow.
When somebody suggested I write a book, I can remember saying, people like me don't write books. How ridiculous is that? What a limiting belief is that? But it came from a teacher.
Wow.
And that's appalling. We can all do anything. You just have to believe in yourself, and that's what I'm learning, to trust me and believe in me, and then I can do it.
Yeah,
but most of us have limiting beliefs of some sort that quite often come from childhood, school, parents, peer groups, and you don't realize what people are saying and the impact it has on you.
Right. Right.
So when you start that self-development stuff and you realize that actually the world is your oyster, you can do anything. You just have to want to do it. And if you want to do it, you know, the Santander stuff, the theme was women in business. And I spoke about my friend who was an amazing woman in business, but she was motivated and driven and resilient. And she just got out there and did it. And, you know, she was in roofing, which is a very male dominated area. In the 80s, it was even worse. And she built a very successful business. So, you know, if you can do it in that environment, you can do it now. You just have to want to do it.
Get out there and do it. Yeah. Sally, we're just going to move into the last few minutes now, and I'm going to take it off track a little bit and throw some questions at you that might be fun and they might not be. Sally, what are we doing here?
For me, I think it's about sharing and helping other people, because, you know, I have all this knowledge which other people need as well, and I love it and I'm passionate about it. So
fantastic.
Yeah, I'm growing a business, but it's on the back of helping other people and supporting other people. So I think that's my purpose, to make a difference.
I love that.
And help other people.
That's brilliant. I love that. I've got another one for you, and this is something that's really close to my heart. I said it earlier on. I've been thinking about it my whole life. It's like, how do we thrive? What is it to flourish?
How do we? That's an interesting question. I think, you know, it's interesting. I've been talking to my sons recently, and, you know, I love what I'm doing, and part of it is for them as well. But they throw that back at me and say, you know, mother, just enjoy it. Just, you know, have the life that you want, because, you know, we do our own thing. But I guess that's part of the way we grew up. You want to leave something for your children, leave a legacy, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that's not always money, is it? So
right.
But in my business, it's about to be automated and hit the digital age. So it will leave an income for them. So I have the life that I want, and hopefully they will have what they want too in years to come. So yeah, and that's what drives me in a way, you know, having the lifestyle that I want while helping other people, but also
I love it. It's the balance, isn't it? Yeah. You
don't have to be a pushy salesperson and, you know, in everybody's face, but you can very quietly do it. Make that difference, I guess.
I love that.
Very rewarding.
Yeah. Okay. This is the final one I'm going to throw at you, and I just made it up as I'm sitting here. So so I give you a time machine, and you go back to that day when you're 17, and the teacher's just said to you, you know, to your parents, don't investigate, and you walk in, you wait, screw her.
Yeah.
This is what do you, and you say to your 17-year-old self, what do you say to her?
Oh, I'd love to go back to that teacher and just show her what I've done.
But what do you say to your 17-year-old self?
Well, I just think it just proves that we can all do anything, you know. It's taken me a long time, like you. It's taken me a long time to realise that there is more out there, that I can do more. Yeah. And I think that's what I'd say to anyone, really. Just,
I love it.
You don't have to be stuck where you are. If you're not happy where you are, then change it. Because there is more out there for all of us if we want it.
You know what? It's brilliant, and I love what you've said. I'm just going to finish this off. I'm just going to tell a really quick story because it's just apt at the moment. I was sitting in a coffee shop, I don't know, a few months back, and there was an old lady, and very old. She was, you know, I knew she was well over 70. I didn't know how old she was, but she looked pretty old. She was sitting there having a coffee, and she looked at me a couple of times, and I kind of smiled at her, and then about half an hour later she got up, and as she walked past me, I was struggling writing and, you know, deep in my thoughts, and she said, "It's never too late, you know."
Yeah.
I was just like, what the, you know, and I kind of looked at her, and and she said, and then she told me her story. I mean, apropos of nothing, she just told me her story. She said she was 86, and yeah, and her husband had died when she was 48, and she was completely bereft. She didn't know what her life would consist of. It took her, you know, after about 5 years, she kind of got out of it, and then she'd always wanted to be an artist. And at the age of 53, she went back and studied art because she was quite good at art when she was young. She studied art and she became a professional artist. And she said, my life since 53, she said, these 33 years or whatever it was, I think it was 33 years. She said that she'd kind of lived 2 lives. And this second half of her life she'd been all over the world, and it blew my mind. You know, if ever there was a story saying it's never too late to do what you want to do. I think that's a George Eliot quote, actually. But, you know, that's the final, yeah.
I never imagined having my own business, doing this, you know, writing the books and speaking. It just was never part of anything I could dream of. You know, I've been employed for years and years and years, and never imagined there was anything else apart from that. So, yeah, this is all a bit of a revelation. And
well, yeah.
Definitely more out there. So if there's something you're passionate about, you need to follow that passion, see where it takes you.
I love it. Fantastic. Sally, thank you so much for speaking to me. I really appreciate you pushing through and thinking, I don't know who this weird guy is, but I'm going to talk to him anyway. That's the joie de vivre that you have now. So it's just perfect. You've been brilliant. Thank you, Sally. Thanks very much.
For the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.